Hello and welcome to the Posers Podcast, the place where we skip the fluff, say the quiet parts out loud, and dig into what really matters. This is where photography, psychology, and business collide. I'm Jody, your host, and I'm bringing you my raw takes, hard wins, and a whole lot of unfiltered honesty about what it takes to build a photography business that actually connects and makes money. So ladies, grab your headphones and get your tits up and your ears open because we are going to build something really incredible together. Well, hello, my beautiful posers, and welcome back to another episode of the Posers Podcast. Today's episode is a little bit different. It's not a strategy episode. It's not a marketing episode. And honestly, I need to give you a little bit of a heads up before we even get into this one because we're going to go somewhere deeper than business today. And this episode actually touches a little bit on body image. Don't ask me how I managed to bring photography back to a topic like body image, but I did it. And some of it might sit too close to home for some of you. I have a master's degree in psychology, but I'm not a therapist, and nothing I say today is meant to replace any sort of professional support. So if you need to pause this or sit with this or skip it altogether, that's okay too, because obviously I want to give this little bit of disclaimer so that you can make the decision to take care of yourself. Obviously. But if you're ready, this episode's a little bit more like a heavy conversation with a really close friend. So I want you to think back to growing up, like middle school years, maybe high school years, maybe even college years, that era. And I want you to think of one specific girl. Maybe she's your best friend. Maybe she sat next to you in one of your classes. Maybe she was your sister. But this specific friend was stunning, like objectively, undeniably beautiful, obvious. Everybody could see it. Strangers could see it. Teachers saw it. Boys saw it. Other girls saw it and felt that pang of like jealousy of something that they didn't have that they wanted. Okay. I know that we all have this girl in our lives, or some of us might even be this girl in our lives. But for me, this was one of my very best friends. And the way that the room would light up whenever she entered was something that honestly should be studied. I've always been very acutely aware of like how insanely gorgeous women are. And to the point that my husband would tell you that there's been many times in our marriage that he has questioned if I should be married to a woman. And I tell him, do not get comfortable because the answer is yes. It is always a resounding yes. I love to photograph women. I love the angles of women. I love how stunning women are. And being a woman's woman is literally one of my favorite parts of running this business. So back then, obviously, it would pain me to see my friend in the light that I saw her in and the light that others saw her in, and to know that she didn't see herself in that same way. Everyone literally saw it except for her. And it wasn't just her looks either. She was hysterically funny. She is hysterically funny. She went off to get multiple degrees. She lived abroad. She had her whole entire career and like life path nailed down before she got married, and then spent years living this really incredible life with an amazing husband before she decided to have a couple of kids. So she literally she gets everything right. She makes no mistakes. Literally her entire life. I'm like, no notes, girl. Like, you've got it. But she also, this same girl, lost so much weight our junior year in high school that jeans that would have fit her snugly the year before would literally fall off of her hip bones. She couldn't keep them on. She would stand in front of the mirror. Ooh, I didn't think that would make me emotional saying that, but here we are. She would stand in front of the mirror and she would see something that none of the rest of us could see. She'd point at her stomach. She'd say that she needed to lose weight. She'd point at her face and like find literally the one flaw that the rest of us would have never noticed. She'd put herself down in that like really quiet, but almost like automatic way. The things that she was saying about herself felt so automatic for her that she just assumed that it was like understood by everyone. Like, the sky is blue and she's not good enough. Those were both facts for her. And obviously we'd tell her constantly that she's gorgeous. We did all of the like, what are you talking about? Like, stop it. Like, we did all of that like talk that we were supposed to do as her girlfriends. And usually she'd just brush it off. She would make a joke about it. She would laugh. She would like go about her day. But here's the part that haunts me whenever I think back on it now as an adult. It wasn't that she didn't have evidence. She had piles of evidence. She had a mirror full of evidence. She had rooms full of people telling her the truth. She had boys tripping over themselves to ask her out. The evidence was never the problem. Her eyes were showing her something that simply was not there. And no amount of proof from the outside world could override what she believed on the inside. I'm telling you this story because I think almost every single one of you listening right now had a version of her in your life. And I bet some of you had a version of her looking back at you in your own mirror. But I'm also telling you this story because it is the exact same thing that is happening to so many of you in your business too. All right, so let me tell you about where this all came from and why this is in my head. I had a conversation a couple weeks back, and obviously I was in my DMs. That's where I always am. That's where I talk to all of you. But I was in my DMs and a photographer reached out and asked me about my presets, where I had bought them, what I used, the whole gamut of questions that come along with a preset. And I told her that I didn't buy them. I told her that I made them myself, and I made them probably a decade ago. She also asked whether or not I sell them. I said, no, I don't sell them. I am not techie enough to figure out how to even do that. So she asked for a little bit of guidance on what to do instead because she couldn't buy my presets. And I told her what I tell everyone because I thought it was just going to be this very easy conversation that her and I had. I said, go buy a preset that you like genuinely love, but know this one thing going in. Know that there is no one click and it's perfect button. There's not a preset that is out there that you are just going to give it one click and it's just all of a sudden the perfect edit that you've ever seen in your life. That just doesn't exist. So you buy the preset pack that you love and then you tweak it and you hone it and you build from there until it actually reflects what you want your work to look like. And then you save a few versions of it for the lighting situations that you shoot in the most. And then the most important part for the preset is that once you dial all that in and once you hone it to have the look that you want it to have, then you have to put it down and then you have to walk away from it and you have to leave it alone. So we had that whole entire conversation in the DMs, but then she came back and told me something that kind of stopped me in my tracks. She said that she has bought hundreds of presets over the last 10 years, hundreds, and none of those hundreds of presets had ever been what she wanted them to be for her. And my first response back was just kind of validating on my side. I said, yeah, like that actually proves my point. There is never a one-click answer. You have to do the work. You have to like take the one preset, hone it, like tweak it, make it yours, right? But then something deeper hit a little bit. And I reread her response, and then I clicked over into her profile, and sure enough, I saw exactly what I thought that I was going to see, because her editing was absolutely immaculate, absolutely stunning, literally no notes, creamy skin tones, crushed blacks, dreamy, luminous, gorgeously cohesive. And that's where I knew that I needed to like slow down, because I wanted to have a deeper conversation with her. And this right here is actually the heart of this whole entire episode. So I didn't tell her my theory right away. I kind of asked some clarifying questions first, because I genuinely wanted to know what was going on underneath all of this. And I asked her, I said, do you think that changing your mind so many times on what kind of an edit that you love, that sort of bouncing back and forth, oscillating thoughts going back and forth in your head about editing, I asked her whether or not they were leaving her in this place of never deciding just because the edit was actually not what she loved, or was it a little bit deeper, and was it maybe a confidence issue where the tinkering is actually keeping her safe? Because as long as she's tinkering, she doesn't have to sort of admit that, like, okay, like my photos are gorgeous, my craft is honed, and now it's time for me to leave this thing that makes me feel so comfortable. And now I have to step away, and now I have to build the harder parts of the business. And I said to her that maybe she needed to take some time and figure out if this is really a preset issue or if this is a confidence issue. And I told her that it didn't sound like a technical issue or a coloring issue to me, because her edits were so stunning. So then, me being me, of course, because I can't help myself, I held up a mirror a little bit more, because if there's one flaw that I have, it is this. My biggest flaw is that I care more about each one of your businesses than I care about your temporary comfort or your temporary discomfort. So I told her that her edits look great, and that it's really important for her to not only stop wasting her time and her money on more presets, but to also stop playing with the pretty, and that it was time to roll up her sleeves and work on the parts of her business that actually need her, because editing was not it. Editing was not needed. That was not the constraint in her business. And obviously I followed it up with a little bit of like, a kissy face emoji, because I wanted her to know that I said it with love, because I'm not a sociopath, you guys. But you know what happened after that, which I was actually like so proud of her for, and so happy that we got to have this conversation, because she came back with something that was so honest and so transparent. And she said, yeah, I get it. I think if I feel confident in my edits, I would actually have to tackle the other things that I need to do. So instead, I let myself stay in a place where I'm unsure, because that feels safer. And she said, I'm spending so much time getting my photos to look a certain way and fixing color issues, and I'm still not happy with the outcome. So then I tell myself that I can't focus on the other parts of my business until I get this part of it right. So she named the problem herself, and she was really vulnerable and really transparent with me, which I absolutely loved. And she said that the editing was the excuse that she was letting stand between her and the things in her business that genuinely scared her. So I said, yeah, like, you've got it. That's exactly what I'm saying. You're looking at this like it's an editing problem, but it's deeper than that. The tinkering is a symptom of a bigger problem here. And then I gave her an example that I think makes this click for most of us. And I said, it's like whenever you lash out at a friend and then you just say like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like I'm tired or I'm cranky or I'm hungry. And that's the reason that you lashed out at them. But really, it's because they said something that brushed up against like a much deeper wound. And being tired or being hungry or being cranky, like that's just the easier, more acceptable explanation. The tinkering works the same way. It happens because of self-doubt, because of perfectionism, which we all know, because I've said it a million times, is really just a symptom of self-sabotage. Or it can maybe even be a self-worth sort of issue. And it keeps you comfortable to call it this editing problem, because an editing problem is so much easier to live with than the truth that's underneath it. And then, of course, because I don't stop there, my brain went off into this love of all things psychology that I have. And I said, this is literally like body dysmorphic disorder in your business. Just like a person with body dysmorphic disorder looks in the mirror and sees fat where nobody else can see it because the fat literally actually doesn't exist. It's their brain lying to them and tricking them and showing them something that isn't there, but you cannot convince them of the fact that it's not there, because that is their truth. That is genuinely what they are seeing, because their brain is lying to them. The same situation is happening here. People see your photos and they can tell you until they're blue in the face that your photos are gorgeous, that your photos are stunning. Or you can read the barrage of comments that are left on a post where tons of people are saying how gorgeous the photos are, but your brain won't let you see it. Your brain shows you where skin tones aren't balanced. Your brain tells you that your eyes need to zero in on the greens that are teetering on being too neon, or any of the other imperfections that your brain is seeing. And the bigger problem isn't actually your editing. It's the story that your brain is telling you about what you see. So if you think back to that girl, the one that we were talking about before, our best friends or our sister or whoever, the one who can look in the mirror and see something that isn't really there. If you tried to fix what she was seeing by handing her a different mirror, then it wouldn't work. If you tried to fix it with, say, better lighting or a different outfit, it wouldn't work. If you tried to fix it by telling her like one more time just how beautiful she is, maybe it'll help for a minute, but it would not fix the actual problem, because the problem was never in the mirror. The problem was never in the lighting. The problem was in how her brain is interpreting what she sees. So until that part gets addressed, she can change mirrors 1,000 times and she will still see the same distorted reflection looking back at her, because the call is coming from inside the building, right? Now, like overlay that onto editing, or really any part of your business that you're letting yourself hide behind. If you have spent years buying preset after preset or tweaking and adjusting and still feeling like nothing is ever quite right, I just want you to hear me that the presets are not the problem. The presets have never been the problem. You can buy 1,000 more and the feeling will not change, because you are not actually looking for the right preset. You are looking for the permission to feel like your work is enough. That tweaking, it's that endless hunting for the perfect edit, that is simply a mask. It's something to kind of keep your hands busy and your mind occupied so that you don't have to sit with the much scarier question underneath it, which is, am I actually good enough to run this business? What if I let go of this tinkering and work on something that scares the shit out of me and then I fail? It's easier to say that I didn't try than it feels to say that I tried and I failed at it. These things that we hide behind, they aren't the issue. They're just simply the symptom. And as long as you're still tweaking, you never actually have to finish. And if you never finish, by finish, I mean like getting the photos right. Okay. And if you never finish, if you never get the photos right, then you never have to face whether or not it was ever good enough. And the editing becomes this thing that's really standing in between you and that real fear. I want to be really careful because I don't obviously want to say this lightly. There's a pattern underneath all of this. The refusal to trust your own eyes, the endless search for something that's outside of yourself to fix a feeling that lives inside of yourself. And that pattern shows up in so many corners of a woman's life, not just like inside of Lightroom for us. We are so hard on ourselves as women. As women, we carry a kind of harshness towards ourselves that we would never in a million years dream of pointing at someone that we love. We pick ourselves apart in mirrors. We pick ourselves apart in photos. We pick ourselves apart in the quiet moments that literally nobody else ever sees. And sometimes that harshness settles somewhere and we lose control of it. Sometimes it settles into a relationship with food, or our relationship with our own bodies, or where the evidence in front of us stops mattering because the belief underneath has taken over completely. And I want to speak to that with real, like genuine care, because if that's part of your story, please know that I am not comparing your experience to a preset pack. Okay, I would never minimize that. What I am saying is that the same root is often growing underneath both of those things. The same refusal to believe how good you really are at this thing called photography, the same exhausting search for an external fix to an internal wound, they live in the same part of us as women. That harshness and that mindset doesn't stay contained to the mirror. It doesn't stay contained to your body or your plate or your reflection. It finds other rooms in your life to live in. And one of the rooms it loves the most is your business, because then it can show up really disguised. It shows up disguised as perfectionism, as high standards, as a strong work ethic. It tells you that it's just, helping you do it really well. It tells you that it's just making sure that you measure up to all of those who are around you. It's making sure that you're liked by others. It looks so reasonable on the outside that you'd never think to question it. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing. It walks into your business wearing this costume of perfectionism, and then perfectionism gets praised in our culture. So nobody stops to ask, like, what are you actually guarding? So if you notice yourself endlessly tweaking a gallery, endlessly chasing a preset, endlessly finding one more flaw in your work or something else in your business that everyone else tells you that you're great at, or everyone else says, oh my God, your work is so beautiful, I want you to pause and I want you to ask yourself that like really gentle question. Is this actually about skin tones? Or is this the same old wolf wearing a sheep's costume, trying to convince you that something is wrong with your work that other people genuinely cannot see? All right. Let's bring this back to your business, because this isn't just a mental health tangent. This is also costing you real time and real money. And if you're still hunting for the perfect preset after 10 years, you are spending hours every single day, every single week that you will never get back. Hours that you could be spending marketing your business, building relationships, actually shooting, or actually living your life too. And the cruelest part is that it really feels like you're working on your craft. It feels like you're working on the right assignment. But if it's been years and you still don't trust your own eye, the work was never going to be inside of another preset pack. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that, one podcast episode rewires a lifetime of self-doubt. That's obviously not how this works, and I'd be lying to you if I said otherwise. But I can tell you where the shift starts to happen. It starts with separating the question that you're actually asking. Instead of asking what preset will make this perfect, start asking, what am I afraid will happen if I just decide that this edit right here in front of me is good enough, and move on? And sit with that question, really sit with that question. For a lot of you, the honest answer underneath is something like, I'm afraid someone will see my work and realize that I'm not as good as they think I am. And that fear, that's the real subject. And once you can name that fear, you can actually start working on it directly instead of kind of laundering it through your editing or whatever else in your business that you can hide behind for, another decade. And another question that I really want to leave you with today, because I don't think that any of these questions are really mine to answer. I just want you to sit with them and for you to think, and I want you to ask yourself, can you ever actually build the business that you crave, the one that you can see so clearly in your head, if these thoughts are still running the show underneath it all? And I don't know that answer. That's not for me to answer for you, but I think it's worth asking, and I think it's worth really getting an honest answer. Whenever we were girls, I wonder sometimes what would have happened if someone had told us gently that the mirror wasn't lying to us, but our brain was. Not in a way that blamed us, just in a way that at least named it, so that we could have grown up telling ourselves a different story. Like, if we had had that whenever we were little girls, what would we have built by now? What would we have already accomplished? What would we have already done? Or how differently would we feel about ourselves at this point in our lives? I think we owe it to ourselves to find out. Okay, that's it for today, my beautiful posers. This one was a little different, a little more personal, but I think sometimes, especially in this world, we need a lot more of these personal moments. If anything, in this episode stirred up some heavier topics than obviously just editing for you, then please don't carry that alone. Talk to someone that you trust or a professional who can help you through it. Next week, we will get back to business. Bye for now, posers.
Okay, so that is a wrap on this episode of the Posers Podcast. If you loved it, please subscribe, rate, and review, because honestly, algorithms are needier than all of our ex-boyfriends combined, and ladies, I need all the help I can get. If you've got thoughts, questions, love letters, even hate mail, please send them my way. I actually read every single one of them. So until next time, stay bold, stay messy, and don't let the bullshit win. Tits up, ears open, and go build something incredible. Bye for now, friends.